I will never forget Grandma Mary's 85th birthday in 2009. To celebrate, our family went to our favorite restaurant. 4 generations gathered around a long single table. You could hear the clanking of glasses to poetic toasts made in Grandma's honor. Smiles on everyone's faces. Life could not have been any better. And then in one single moment, our life would change forever. My mom was the first to notice that during the main course, Grandma had become unresponsive. My wife leaped out of her chair and started administering first aid. I called 911, and minutes later, the paramedics arrived with a stretcher and rushed Grandma by emergency ambulance to the hospital. The physicians in emergency, they conducted a battery of tests, and we were in the waiting room. The neurologist came to see us to give us the bad news. Grandma had had a stroke. But there was hope. There was good news. A clot-bursting medication would be administered to Grandma and literally brought her back to life. Days later, before being discharged from hospital, we would learn that Grandma had been diagnosed with vascular dementia. This meant she could no longer live independently. She would require care. At first, we tried home care as well as family visits, but after several weeks of this, we discovered this was too difficult for us to manage. And Grandma, we talked to her, and we decided that it was best for all of us if she moved into an assisted living facility. And as her dementia progressed, she eventually moved into a nursing home next door. Grandma, like 1 in 3 people over 85, will require care in old age. That means that 1/3 of you in the audience today will require care if you live to be 85. The other third of you will be caring for that person. Now, the lucky ones, they're the ones who never experience life inside a care home. Because they're dancing, they're romancing, and they wish the music would never stop. But what if a revolution swept through the aged care sector, such that the people who lived in those nursing homes, that they were the lucky ones? Back to Grandma's story. I would go visit Grandma, and I usually find her in her bedroom. Knock, knock. Grandma, it's Dan, your favorite grandson. I'd open the door, I'd see Grandma there, and she would say, "It's good to see you, Dan, my only grandson." She'd invite me into her room. I'd sit down next to her, and I'd say, "Grandma, how was your day?" Grandma would say, "Oh, they're so good to me here, Dan. I have my own space. It's my comfort zone. And I have friends here. Grandma, tell me about your friends." "Well, I have friends that come to visit me." "Tell me about this friend that comes to visit you." "He's a gentleman who lives in the assisted living building. They spend time together in the privacy of her bedroom." Think 50 Shades of Gray Hair. Now, because I was 40 and 45 years away from my 85th birthday, I really wanted to know what it's like to live in that nursing home. So I'd say, "Grandma, tell me about your daily routines. Like, what's it like in the morning when you wake up?" She would tell me that the staff are very good to her. They wake her up in the morning, they take her out of bed, they transfer her to the toilet, they help her get dressed, they groom her. She always looked graceful. And then they escort her, they porter her to the multi-purpose room where she waits outside of the closed door in the cafeteria dining room to wait for breakfast to be served promptly at 8 a.m. I would say, "Grandma, if you had a choice, if you could sleep in or you could have breakfast in your room and eat what you want when you want to eat it, would that be an improvement to your quality of life?" She would turn to me with a straight face and she would say, "I'm content with my lot." The truth is that most seniors living in nursing homes, they have very little influence on the rhythm of the day. The rhythm of the day is determined by the institution, not by the individual. Then Grandma would say to me, "Dan, why are you asking me all these questions?" By all accounts from her family members, Grandma was lonely, helpless, and bored. Now, despite being a gerontologist since 1994, and despite working in the aged care industry for over 2 decades, there was very little I could do to influence Grandma's life. Now, life in the nursing home wasn't always so good. In that very same nursing home, Grandma Mary's dad, Grandpa Abe, he lived there too. He had Alzheimer's disease. It was the 1980s. Back then, the situation was a little more archaic. I remember visiting residents who lived there, and they were wearing seatbelts in the wheelchairs they were sitting in to make sure they didn't fall out and hurt themselves. I also remember seeing somebody wearing a harness with an elastic rope tethered to a pole so they wouldn't escape. The movement to transform the nursing homes, that came about in 1987 in the United States from a legislation package called the Nursing Home Reform Act. In it, it guaranteed the rights of seniors to be free from abuse and neglect, most visible in physical restraints and less visible in chemical restraints, psychotropic medications. And since that legislative package was proclaimed, we've seen incredible improvements in the nursing home industry. Back to Grandpa Abe's story. He spent most of his time confined to that wheelchair, and he was disengaged from the world around him, mainly because of a culture of warehousing seniors. Except when his children would come to visit him, including Grandma Mary. Then he was himself. He was Grandma's dad. He was a grandfather. But I wondered, had Grandpa Abe been given chemical restraints to control his unwanted, his undesirable behaviors that were the result of Alzheimer's disease? And I thought to myself, he was no longer able to reminisce about his life history, about living through the Russian Revolution, about taking a steamship across the Atlantic with his beautiful wife Rose and his daughter Mary. He was no longer able to talk about his family business or how he used to do headstands at family functions to entertain us. No longer able to talk, to walk, to feed himself or recognize us. He was really disengaged. But we believe that when his family was with him, he was himself, and he had quality of life, and he had a life worth living. Well, Grandpa Abe was living in that nursing home. I was going to school at University of British Columbia. I was a psychology student studying for many years at university. And while I was there, I came across a research study. And I've been doing this research because I really didn't want to see what happened to Grandpa Abe happen to other seniors. And now in that research study, these two psychologists, Ellen Langer and Judith Rodin, they went to a nursing home in New England. And in that nursing home, they gave the residents a plant. The control group were told that the staff would care for that plant, just like they cared for the residents. When those researchers came back 3 weeks later, the residents had not got better. They'd actually gotten worse by 71% in their quality of life indicators and their care indicators. Meanwhile, the floor where the residents had a plant and were told that they're responsible for the plant, they're responsible for caring for the plant, for watering it, fertilizing it, make sure it gets sun, and make sure it grows, those residents, 93% of them, actually improved. They were more alert, they were happier, more engaged in the world around them, and they did better. So that means that if you want to improve the physical health and mental health of a senior, give them choice, give them purpose. Meanwhile, a feeling of helplessness can contribute to social disengagement, illness, disease, and even death. Knowing this led me to want to become a gerontologist and to see that we can make a difference in the lives of seniors. In the lives of seniors, that people who were physically or mentally challenged from no fault of their own, we could certainly do a better job than we had. We've seen incredible improvements in the way that nursing homes have evolved from the time that Grandpa Abe lived in one to the time that Grandma Mary lived in one. And that journey, that evolution is only getting faster. And if you think about it, the way that we're aging and living longer, that we have more seniors today than young people, our life expectancy is increasing, and we will be being dependent on others for long periods of time. I recently asked the residents in the nursing home where I worked why women live longer than men. It's true that women live 6 years longer usually than men, and one of the residents had the answer. She pointed at me and she said, "Mr. Levitt, I'll tell you why women live longer than men, because we deserve to." Nursing homes are being replaced by centers of living around the globe, and we're seeing them being designed around small households. They don't feel like warehouses or institutions or hospitals. They feel like home. Seniors there, they dine together around one table. They eat together. They have access to the kitchen 24/7, and they get to do what they want when they want to do it. And if you look at the design elements in those households, there is no distinguishing features that would tell you that you're inside a nursing home. If you look at that picture, you can't see anything that tells you it's an institution. There's no central nursing station. There are no long corridors, or some of us say no long horror doors. You won't see shiny floors reflecting the fluorescent tubes above. And you certainly won't see a staff member wearing hospital scrubs pushing a wheelchair trying to get to the dining room on time. In some markets, these new household model homes, they are disrupting the industry so much that we're seeing those old age nursing homes that I described earlier, they are either choosing to shut down or they're converting themselves to become the smaller household design. We're seeing homes for the aged now built in the middle of neighborhoods. They become community hubs. These vibrant town centers are complete with libraries, with skating rinks, with swimming pools, with fitness centers, childcare centers, adult daycare centers. And this is not just for seniors. These are for middle-aged people, young people, and for children. They have all the community amenities that you would want in one location. You may have heard of the university that had oversubscribed dorms. Students had nowhere to live. So they went to the neighboring nursing home that had vacancy challenges, and the students moved in, and they invented a multi-generational community right there. Students are teaching seniors new tricks. They're teaching them how to be computer literate. It's only an ageist myth that purports that seniors cannot learn new things. You may have heard of this idea of apartment buildings being built across the greenway from a care home. And in those apartments, the families who live there, part of their tenancy agreement is that they volunteer in the nursing home. And their children, they adopt the seniors living there as grandparents. In the Netherlands, there's a place called Dementia Village. It's a short train ride away from Amsterdam. 6 seniors live together in one household. Sounds more like a family to me. And those seniors have access to a complete village in that area. There's a secure perimeter around that community. And the most innovative part of this community is a general store. They took the old storage room and converted it into a place that you'd want to go shopping. This senior in this picture is buying the groceries for her household. That's lunch and dinner and breakfast the next day. It also includes incontinent products and other clinical supplies. These seniors are at the forefront of a wave that's sweeping through the aged care industry, a revolution. This community is a generation ahead of its time. Now, across the Pacific in Tokyo, Japan, 10 centenarians, people over 100, who have dementia live together. Part of their daily choices includes eating 1,500 calories of delicious Japanese food, drinking a minimum of 1.5 liters of their favorite beverage, exercise programs, and meaningful activities. The seniors who live there, who are incontinent, they're toilet retrained. No more diapers. That brings back a sense of control, dignity, usefulness, and quality of life. The seniors who arrive in wheelchairs, a physiotherapist assesses them, and they start to walk again, using the assistance of a mobility aid. Including seniors in our communities is critical. If you think about the inclusion movement, we call it the age-friendly and dementia-friendly communities. That means that regardless of the year you were born, you're an equal citizen. Your lives matter. You're understood, you're valued, and you're part of the surroundings and the neighborhood where you live. Dementia and age-friendly. It goes from Abbotsford to Singapore. The village movement, which started in Boston, which is very popular online. Virtual villages are popping up around America. They're very popular with aging baby boomers. It's a low-cost alternative to assisted living. These people may never have to move into a nursing home because they support each other. It's the most innovative part of this program is a referral program, a referral system, a concierge-like program where you can get assistance with your yard work, your household chores, perhaps repairs to your house, maybe walking a dog, prescription pickups, transportation to the local store. It's an innovative model. And the last one I want to share with you is called co-housing, where seniors live together in one neighborhood that they design and they create. And it's all about neighborly support. They call it co-care. They also hire help as they need it. And the seniors who live there, while they're supporting each other, they're focusing on physical accessibility. And the principle of this environment is sustainability in terms of social responsibility, environmental responsibility, and social sustainability. We've come a long way since the time that Grandpa Abe lived in care. We've come even further since the time that Grandma Mary experienced her aging journey. And I just hope that by the time I'm living in one of those innovative models, when I'm celebrating my 85th birthday, along with a third of you, that there'll be a student in university who wants to become a gerontologist who will continue the revolution in aged care. Thank you.